Alright, this is Mythbusters, and we're going to show you the correct procedure for checking valve lift, including the importance of finding absolute zero. What we're going to do is we're going to take and put the valve cover tester on here to check valve lift. And we're going to take and tighten the rocker arm up. I got it just finger tight now, but we're going to tighten it up until we put a little bit of preload in it. Doesn't matter how much really, but I just want to put some in there because we're going to take and turn the motor over a few revolutions here. Just to make sure that we get all the radial run out of the motor itself. You got radial run out in the push rod cups on each end, the lifter cup, the cup in the rocker arm. They all have radial run out where they're not produced perfectly and they got some problems. So by turning the motor over, basically we're trying to make sure that everything rotates into a position to where with the preloads causing it to go into its more natural position. So we're going to try to find the base circle of the camshaft here. So I'm actually on lift now, so we're going to go back. Okay, so now we're at supposed zero here on the base circle of the cam. And if you zoom in and show this real close, there's going to be a spot on the camshaft that's going to be smaller than the base circle by maybe a half a thousandths to a thousandth. So as we're turning it, we're on about 6 thousandths. You can see right there, it dipped down about a half a thousandths down to 5. So there's a spot on the cam right there before it goes into valve lift that when the camshaft's produced, that particular spot is smaller than the base circle of the cam. So you got to make sure that that is the actual zero mark on the cam where you're going to start all this procedure of checking lift. So looks like that's right there. So we're going to back this up until it goes towards zero as far as we can go. And when it stops moving, that's where we're going to start checking the lift of this camshaft. So I'm just loosening the polylock nut up and it stops moving there, so we're going to zero this out right at that particular spot. Okay, then we're going to turn the motor over. To check lift. There's 200, 300, 400. We're at 500 and 1.5. And then always make sure you roll it back around to make sure it goes back to zero again. Just to make sure that everything, is correct and you did the procedure correctly. Now, there's been some controversy on whether a guy changes, the test procedure to start with on everybody's motor, in my opinion, is, we're testing a bunch of motors and we want to make sure they're correct. Well, I just stick a feeler gauge between the rocker arm and the valve. I just stick one in there, and if it's not close, then it's no problem. We just move on to the next motor. The procedure I just showed you would be if you've got one that's really close on lift and you want to be absolutely sure that you are checking it on absolute zero. So we're going to loosen this up. We're going to put a feeler gauge in there. I know this particular camshaft here, the lash on it's 23, so I got a 23 thousandths feeler gauge we're going to stick in here. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing. Every time you do this, to get the exact same number, you have to find absolute zero. And make sure you take all the radial run out of it to be correct. Okay, so we're going to tighten it up put some extra tightness into it, and then we're going to turn the motor over to make sure, same thing as before, that we take the radial runout out of it. So we're going to turn it a couple times around. And if you're doing this at the track, you just roll the car forward, put it in gear, roll it forwards and backwards. Okay. So everything should have centered itself up, and all the radial runout should have gone to its most natural position to where there's the least amount of radial runout. So now we'll back this up until it stops moving towards zero. And when it stops, that's where we do our test. Okay, and stop there. So make sure we're on zero. Okay, now we're going to turn the motor over. Check our lift again. And that's with a 23 thousandths feeler gauge jammed in there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 501 again. So no matter whether you do it with a feeler gauge or not, as long as you make sure you're at absolute zero with no radial runout, the test will come up the same. Okay, so if a guy's close on lift, sometimes it can be corrected by changing push rod length to change the angle of the rocker arm a bit. And if that's not enough, there's always different ratios of rocker arms that can be run. So lift infractions can always be corrected in some form or another. Generally doesn't require the removal and replacement of a camshaft. It can be generally done with components. But the whole procedure process of checking lift, the key to it is to make sure you have absolute zero found if this is close on lift, and you want to be absolutely sure that you got the correct number.